So let's start out one piece at a time. Let's start out with our f of x plus h. And what that means is that we're going to plug in an x plus h into our original function wherever there's an x. So in our original function, we have a 2, and then we'll replace that x with an x plus h. Notice the x in the formula is squared, so we have to leave it as squared, and then there's a plus 1. So everything else will stay the same. Now this is our entire f of x plus h piece. We need to make sure that we understand that, so I'm going to put parentheses around that because that was technically plugged into our formula here. Then we have what? We have a minus on top that comes next. So minus. And let's see, what else do we have up there? The next piece we have is f of x, which is just the original function unchanged. That means I'm going to take the entire original function unchanged and just plug it in. That means I'm going to take the entire original function, which was 2x squared plus 1, and plug that in. Again, that's an entire piece. I need to be careful and make sure I put parentheses around it. So the only thing I'm missing is I can't forget that there was an h on the bottom. So let's make sure we put the divided by h here. I'm not going to deal with that until towards the end, but at least I need to get started on it. Okay. One thing at a time. Let's start out with our first set of parentheses and what we're supposed to do first. Well, the first thing that we're supposed to do inside of this first set of parentheses here is the highest operation here is exponents. We've got an x plus h squared. So the question is, what does it mean to square something like x plus h? Well, remember, x plus h squared means something squared means there's identical twins, meaning I've got an x plus h times an x plus h. Well, the only way to multiply that out is FOIL. So this is going to be messy a little bit. Not too bad, though. You should have been foiling for a long time here, so we should be used to it. We got to be careful, though, that we leave that 2 that was out in front and don't change anything. We're only dealing with the parentheses there that were inside. We still have the plus 1. We are just doing the FOIL. So all we're working on is foiling this guy. And then it will go inside of our parentheses. So we are just working on that piece right now, the x plus h squared. So when we're foiling, let's take a look and see what happens. We start out by doing our x times x, which will be x squared. Then our x times our h. Then our h times our x, which is just another xh. And then we get an h squared. Then when we're done foiling, we still have to remember to combine our like terms, which we've got an x plus h plus another x plus h, which means we've actually got 2 of these x plus h's, and it's positive. So we can bring up the x squared, and we can bring up the h squared, and our foiling gives us an x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. So that's what's going to go inside of our set of parentheses. Our x squared plus 2xh plus h squared that we got from foiling. Everything else is going to stay the same. So I'm going to leave my minus sign on my second piece, and I'm going to leave my parentheses and my 2x squared plus 1. I'm not doing anything else. I'm just doing that foiling because I'm going to do always one step at a time so I don't get confused. Now, still working on that first set of parentheses. Let's look at that first set of parentheses again. Well, we did the exponents. Now we still have a set of parentheses with a number out in front. So we've got a 2 that we need to distribute now to everything on the inside. Okay, we're getting there slowly but surely. Let's multiply out the 2. So we'll get a 2x squared when we multiply it out to the x squared. And then we'll multiply it out to 2xh, which will get us a 4xh. Then the 2 times the h squared will get us a 2h squared. We want to be careful that we still have a plus 1 there that we cannot lose. So we still have a plus 1. Getting there, though. Minus, we still have our last piece, the 2x squared plus 1. We're going to leave that alone for now, again, just to avoid confusion. Now, we're getting there. We got rid of the parentheses inside there. We got rid of the exponents. Now, there's nothing really else I can do with what's inside of those parentheses. That's pretty well simplified. Everything that's like terms is combined, and there's nothing out in front to distribute, so that one's done. Now we have to focus on the second set of parentheses and noticing that there's a minus sign out in front, which means I can distribute the minus sign to everything on the inside first. So my first set of parentheses is done. It's a 2x squared plus the 4xh plus the 2h squared plus 1, and I can drop the parentheses because everything's done with that now. Now distributing the minus sign, we get a negative 2x squared minus 1. I'm still not forgetting about the denominator each time. I know it's a pain to write it each time, but if you don't, you're going to lose it or forget about it. However, we're getting there. We now have, let's see, a positive 2x squared and a negative 2x squared. Well, they're the same thing, but reverse signs, so they will cancel out when they're added together. We also have, let's see, a plus 1 and a minus 1, so those will also cancel out when added together. So let's see what we have left. What we have left is that 4xh and a 2h squared on top over just an h on the bottom. Now we are very, very, very close to done. We're not quite done, though. The question is, can we get rid of the h that's on the denominator? We said we can't leave h's on the denominator. And we are going to be able to get rid of it. How are we going to do that? We're going to factor out an h from everything on the top. Notice everything on the top has at least one h. So let's factor out an h on top. So if we factor out a common factor of h, from this first piece, the 4xh, we'll just be left with the 4x plus, now if we pull out only an h from the 2h squared, we'll still have the 2, and we'll still have one of the h's. And we had the h on the bottom. This is where we're going to make our hard work pay off. We had an h on top and an h on the bottom that are off by themselves now. Now we can cancel out the h on the top with the h on the bottom. And what we end up with is our 4x plus 2h. Technically, there's a 1 on the denominator, but if there's a 1 on the denominator, you don't actually need to write it. So we can just leave it as 4x plus 2h. And it's okay that we have an h in our answer as long as the h isn't by itself on the denominator. So we are all set and all done with this problem. And that